Hello friends, and welcome to another video from my series Quick Thoughts On, in which I always talk about different stories from the rich Star Trek universe. 50 years and a few days ago, NBC aired another episode of the third season of classic Star Trek called The Enterprise Incident, and these are my honest opinions about it. The first episode of season 3 was called Spock's Brain, and it is well known as one of the worst episodes not only in the original series, but in the whole Star Trek franchise. Which means that the next episode should be better, right? Well, it is. It is much better, to be perfectly honest. It starts in a slightly unusual way, with a log entry done this time not by the captain, but by the doctor himself. Bones reports that Kirk behaves very strangely for several weeks, probably because of a huge amount of stress and no vacation or any form of rest for a long time. He even thinks that Kirk might go slightly mad. And we see Kirk on the bridge behaving to his officers, well, behaving more like Shatner and not like Kirk. He's a jerk to everybody and orders Sulu to change the course to enter the Romulan space through the neutral zone. Sulu is shocked, but as every good officer should do, he obeys the orders. Even Scotty comes to the bridge asking when the Starfleet order arrived and is shocked to find out that Kirk has entered the Romulan space by his own will, and Starfleet had nothing to do with it. Spock's sensors claim that nothing is there, but they suddenly get surrounded by Klingon D7 ships? Well, the in-universe explanation is that Romulans started to use Klingon ships. The real explanation is, however, much more sad. Wei Chang, the genius who created many of the iconic props for the original series, and even some models, like the original Romulan Bird of Prey, was not a member of the prop makers union. That's why he wasn't officially allowed to work on Star Trek. So the producer Bob Justman came with a brilliant solution. They pretended that all of the props and models Chang created for the show were not created for the show, but instead existed long before, and Desilu has simply bought them from him for the usage on the show. It worked for a while. Chang got no credit for his work, but he got paid and Star Trek got fantastic props, so both sides were happy. But sometimes between seasons 1 and 2, the union got somehow informed about the truth, and Chang couldn't get paid for his yet unpaid work, including the Romulan Bird of Prey. He of course got angry and smashed the model. So when they returned to Romulans for this third season episode, because of the lowered budget they couldn't afford to build a new model, so they simply reused the Klingon D7. But, back to the story. The Enterprise gets hailed by one of the Romulan ships, commanded by Subcommander Tal, who of course wants to arrest them, but he gets called by his commander and ordered to bring Kirk and Spock to them. See how progressive I am? I used a gender-neutral pronoun. Kirk gives command to Scotty and orders him to blow up the ship if necessary, simply to do anything needed to prevent them from getting the Enterprise. And he and Spock beam to the Romulan ship, while 2 Romulan officers beam to the Enterprise as hostages. As we get the surprise of the show, the Romulan commander is an attractive woman dressed up in her grandma's sweater. She first tries to interrogate Kirk, but he claims that they got to Romulan space by pure coincidence. Let's say an navigational error. Since she refuses to accept such a response, she asks the same question Spock, and he, as she could expect from a Vulcan, says the truth. They got to their space because of Kirk's personal order, and that he's probably crazy. Kirk, who wants to prove that he's not crazy at all, suddenly flips out like a madman. Well, that didn't go as well as planned. Kirk gets sent to jail, and the commander starts to quote-unquote work on Spock. Interesting strategy. She was a powerful military leader when she spoke to Kirk, but she started to openly flirt with Spock. She wanted to know why isn't he, the man of logic, in charge of the Enterprise, and he played along and led her to believe that he indeed has strong ambitions. Dr. McCoy was called to the Romulan ship, because Captain Kirk's mental state is getting worse and worse by the minute, and he finally had a chance to talk to him privately and to examine him. Spock and the commander go to Kirk's cell, where McCoy, after his finished examination, confirms that Kirk's mental state is really pretty bad and he shouldn't be legally responsible for his actions, including bringing his ship to Romulan space. That's all what the commander wanted to hear. She gives Spock, who she thinks is now on her side, the command over the Enterprise and orders him to bring the ship to their base. Spock accepts this, which forces Kirk to jump at him, calling him a traitor and threatening to kill him. Spock touches Kirk's face and Kirk falls down dead. Spock explains that he instinctively used the Vulcan death grip. McCoy confirms that Kirk is dead and beams his body to the Enterprise. So, Kirk is dead again? I guess that this time he will be dead for real, right? Well, no, he opens his eyes on the Enterprise's sickbay table just as Nurse Chapel is looking at him. Bad corpse. We are now finally getting the information about what really is going on in this episode. The Enterprise has received information that the Romulans have developed a new type of a cloaking device and panicked, because the Romulans are now even more dangerous than ever before. So of course the Federation scientists needed to get their hands on a working cloaking device to dismantle it and find a reasonable defense to its powers. But they couldn't get one in a more direct way, because going to Romulan space without a good reason would be basically the same thing as declaring war. So they came up with an elaborate plan. Kirk had to pretend that he's insane, so that in the case that they will be caught, the rest of the crew or the Federation will not be taken responsible for the actions of a lonely crazy person. But now, when the Romulans think that Kirk is dead, and Spock is distracting the commander, Kirk has now a perfect chance to get the cloaking device. McCoy gives him quick plastic surgery, Scotty gives him a uniform of one of the two hostages, and they beam him directly to the Romulan ship. Meanwhile, Spock and the commander are fingering each other, and that sounds much more dirty than it actually is, but in this scene we finally see that the commander has fallen for Spock. In the beginning she was probably flirting with him only as a part of her strategy, but here we actually see that she probably fell in love with him. She gets to change into something more comfortable, and Spock has finally the chance to talk to Kirk. He talks to him using his communicator and instructs him where the cloaking device can be found, but something unexpected happens. The Romulan officers are actually competent, and they catch the transmission. And it's only a matter of time until they find out that it comes from the commander's quarters. When they arrived there, she was doing something strange. She was smearing makeup from Spock's face. I honestly don't know if this is something intentional, or if this is a blooper they left in because they thought nobody will notice. Well, I must admit I haven't noticed it for many years. The first time I have noticed it was now when I watched the 1080p Blu-ray transfer on a big screen. But Tal arrives there with his man, and Spock doesn't even pretend that he's innocent. He immediately steps in front of them and asks them what the current method of execution is. Kirk has meanwhile successfully stolen the cloaking device after a few small duels with some Romulan officers, and back on the Enterprise he gave it to Scotty, with the instruction to attach it to the Enterprise system and make it functional within 15 minutes. Yes, Scotty has 15 minutes to take a piece of alien technology he has never seen and doesn't know how it works, find out how it works, find out how to make it compatible with Federation technology, and install it. The funniest thing is that he will be successful. Everybody is on the bridge happy that Kirk is alive, but they have no time to waste. He orders Sulu to plot a course back home and Chekhov to use the sensors to find Spock. Meanwhile, on the Romulan ship, Spock is using his legal right to record his 20 minutes long of speech, when suddenly a transport starts and something strange again happens. I guess that the commander grabs him, and by accident they both get beamed to the Enterprise. I don't know, it's a bit confusing, but they can be lucky it worked. They could end up like in the Voyager episode 2 weeks. But both Spock and the commander end up on the Enterprise bridge. Kirk wants to use her to say to her people that they should back off, but she instead orders Tal to destroy the ship, even if she is on board. That's the opposite what Kirk wants, which means that they need to get out as fast as possible, but thankfully Scotty is indeed a magician. He manages to activate the cloaking device just in time, and when the Enterprise gets invisible, they quickly change course and fly home. Spock has a nice little moment with the commander in the turbo lift on the way to jail, and Kirk gets an ear job. And that is also not as dirty as it sounds. If you watch my videos regularly, you know that I am a huge fan of DC Fontana. She is one of my, let's say, 5 favorite Star Trek writers ever. All of her scripts have great character moments and or are about Vulcans, especially Mr. Spock. This script was written by her, so it of course features Spock in a much more significant role than in the other episodes, and it has a bunch of really nice character moments for most of the regulars. There is, however, one thing which is, in my humble opinion, underdeveloped: the relationship between the commander and Spock. And by the way, no, I am not too lazy to find her name. Her name is never said on screen. I don't like how fast the relationship moves on. I mean, we literally see the commander as a tough soldier in one scene, flirting with a potential spy in another scene, and doing some things which I guess should be erotic in the next one. Plus, in the end, she looks like she really fell in love with him, and he broke her heart. I really find it too hard to take their relationship very seriously, and their relationship is a very important plot point. I fully understand that it's extremely hard to develop a relationship with a previously not established character within 50 minutes, but still there are so many episodes which are much more successful in it. On my standard scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is complete garbage, 10 is a masterpiece, and 5 is just average, I would give this episode 8 out of 10. It's almost perfect, especially when compared to other episodes from this season, but as always, these were just my opinions. Feel free to write your opinions about this episode down in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit that thumbs up button. If you have some free time, feel free to watch any of the other videos on my channel. Thank you very much for watching, and see you very, very soon. Hopefully tomorrow, if nothing unexpected happens. Thanks again, and bye.